What's up, y'all? This is the Thug Lord Tupac. Be sure to check out Westside Radio.
What's up, y'all? It's Julio G. Welcome to Westside Radio. Very happy to have this legend in here with me today. We're going to talk a lot of hip hop and a lot of DJing. I'm going to get right to it. DJ Nu-Mark, Jurassic 5. Thank you for coming.
Hey, good to see you again, man.
It's been a minute. Yeah,
it's been a minute.
It has been a minute, man.
Yeah.
It has been a minute. How you been, though? How you doing, man?
Good, man. Staying busy, staying active. Still practicing really hard.
Yeah, I see you, man.
We were talking about mixing, like recording mixing.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to get better at that. I know you were telling me Tony's getting really ill at, or been ill at it.
Yeah,
so now I'm itching to see Tony's lab and see what he's up to.
Yeah.
But no, that's really what I'm trying to get better at right now is balancing out mixes and getting them competitive.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the latest.
Good,
yeah.
Man. Nu-Mark, I always ask people the beginning, like, where did you get the name Nu-Mark? What made you use that? Like, how did that start?
I needed a name, and I used to DJ with a crew called Bum Rush Productions. We used to do house parties. You remember the LA house party circuit, the 80s, the good old days. And, we were doing parties, but I didn't have a name, and my boy Amani was like, it'll come to you, man. It's probably right underneath your nose. And when he said that, I was mixing on a Nu-Mark.
Okay.
So
it was based off that. That's
and my name's Mark, and it's that lame, and it's that simple. And we remember Nu-Marks used to be like the cream of the crop.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mixer at the time. I'm like, yeah, the hell, I'll call myself Nu-Mark.
Did Nu-Mark, the company, did they have an issue with that, or how did that work out for you?
No, at one point in, I want to say like 2000 or 2001, they approached me. We went and had breakfast. And they were like, we want to collaborate on something. I'm like, oh, dope. Let's do it. And they showed me this needle. This was way before Serato. They showed me this needle that had an LED light right at the tip.
Okay.
And I was like, that is dope. Because, when you beat shop, when you find records, you're looking for the break. And you can kind of see it looks like a thin skate of ice,
groove,
where you can see, oh, that's the break, but that light really illuminated where the break was, or little parts, finding the next song. So I was like, this is a dope idea. I think we got something here, but the needle was terrible. Like it was just jumping in and out of the grooves. And I was like, I can't do it on this. And I was like, hey, why don't we try to do like a portable turntable? Like this was like way before. This is like height of beat digging era, going to flea markets and finding shit, what and they're like, nah, I don't know if that's a fit. And then years later, they came out with a portable turntable and nothing ever happened. So, but I'd still love to collaborate with them on something,
Nu-Mark, I want to ask you, because you're specifically a person like you. There's certain things I want to ask you because you can answer these things.
Okay.
I'm always curious, like, over the years watching these companies, they've done so much with the innovation of what they have, but it's based off what you guys have done. A lot of it has to do with the reason the fader's a certain way.
Yeah.
The reason, the echoes, the delays, everything that's been put into these mixers is not always based off hip hop DJs, because there's mixers that are made for clubbing, right?
Yeah.
But there's just mixers that are made for hip hop, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's based to me off of a lot of stuff that, 1580 KDAY mix masters, the beat junkies, guys like yourself, cut chemists and stuff. How come they don't work with you guys more? How come there's we don't see more sponsorships, or like, hey, this is the DJ Nu-Mark? I would think you would have your own mixer, and the beat junkies would have their stuff. Why do you think they're not with you guys? I think
it's a money thing, like to back in the day, they had the Executioner's Vestex, the Scratch Pickles Vestex and all that stuff. I think it became a money thing. But that said, I will give Pioneer a lot of props, because they do ask a lot of questions.
Okay.
And they know I'm the kind of guy that will communicate when something's funky.
Mm-hmm.
I give it to them straight. Shout out to Drew and everybody over there. They've been on the level. Sponsorship, they'll give you gear, if you're really working with them, and that kind of
so
thing.
You do feel they do respond to you then?
Yeah. There's a lot of companies have merged. Nu-Mark has bought this, and Alesis has bought that, and people have merged or whatever. There's been a lot more merging, same with the record labels. But certain companies will listen, and the ones that didn't listen have fallen out of the loop. They've kind of taken a back seat. So
I want to ask you, Nu-Mark, how did you get into hip hop? Because you've been doing it from early time. When we met in what, 95? Didn't we meet with Zenobia and T-Love and them?
I think that would be very accurate. 95.
Yeah, it was 95.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head.
I was playing Unified Revolution for you. on when I had the Mixmaster show.
It might have been end of 94, but yeah,
it was like 95.
Really close.
Yeah, because Easy had passed away, but I remember Zenobia was doing the radio show with me, and she had her friend T Love, right?
Yeah.
And then you would come with T, I think, and then so that's how I started to mess with you, and then Unified Revolution, we started playing that, which I love that record.
Crazy time, man. How'd I got into hip hop is the question. Well, I started playing drums as a kid, around 7, 8 years old, and then I had in junior high I was in a jazz band class playing drums.
Okay.
And my best friend played bass, and he used to play me records from his uncle, who used to go back and forth to New York. His uncle was a DJ who lived with him. He's like, yo, you heard this, man? I'm like, what is it? At that time, I was mimicking like Led Zeppelin breaks and like anything funky or anything
Back
like
in Black and
anything like funky and also jazz stuff too, because that's the hardest shit to play. So I wish I would have went further with drums in that way, because that's the hardest shit to play is jazz. But he used to play me all these records, and then he hit me over the head with Roxanne, and I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on, man? Like, what is this? And then I think what got me was the size of the drums, because I really didn't understand what a drum machine was back then. You remember that era. It was like, the drum machines are going to take over drummers and musicianship. It was like a real threat, kind of like how AI is now, right?
Yeah.
And I was listening, I'm like, but damn, man, we can't get that texture out of real drums. Like once like Molly Mall came around and that what he did to impeach the president and like how he texturized it either in his SP1200 or whatever he was, you could tell he was overloading it. And I was like, man, where's he getting these sounds? And then another friend of mine who collected records was like, oh no, it's all about sounds. They collect the beats off of the records. And then I was like, oh my God. So in that same jazz band class, when like the teacher was working on like the horn section or whatever, I had a TR 606 and I'd be in my headphones just trying to mimic what the records I heard on KDAY were playing.
Yeah.
That's it. Like I need some turntables and got some belt drive turntables, and that was my initiation. That's how I started.
Wow.
Like it all came through drums and being a musician, really.
Great time, great era too.
I think, like I can say that with confidence because like a lot of people, I think it's neck and neck with us and people who grew up or people grew up in the 60s and then 70s.
Yeah.
But like 60s, there was a lot of racial tension stuff. Our era, we had appreciation for funk and soul. We sampled James Brown to death.
Yeah.
We had appreciation. And then like the birth of new wave and like all those crazy melodies. Like it was like, freestyle music was happening here. Like there's so much to absorb.
Electro scene.
Yeah, and breakdance that came along, then beatbox that came along. And there's like, and the dress code completely switched. Everything was just incredible, man. Like it was, and we still understood the value of family, going outside and playing football with your friends. So the street lights came on. The whole thing was just like,
what's crazy, Nu-Mark, you say that because I think like our era, we really respected like the people before us.
Oh yeah,
come on. Like if I always tell people, it's like you wouldn't believe like the way we looked at, like if Larry Blackman from Cameo walked in right now, me and you would be like, oh,
come on, man.
Oh, bro. And everybody else would be like, who is this guy? Oh, dude, do you understand who you're standing next to? Right, to us, it was always, these guys were so incredible. This music was so great. We've always been, our generation, because I don't think this new generation really salutes back too much like that, but ours, we just love these people. Like, you have no idea. Like, and especially after sampling their stuff, and then you get to really know who they are.
Yeah.
And it's just like Bernie Worrell and this guy and this guy. It's like, damn, man, these dudes were dope, man.
One piece of the puzzle I will say is it was mysterious. And it was still, we're coming out of the era of people scratching out the labels and not knowing. And then like, like what is scratching? And like, what is this shit? Like that to me, what got me going, like, yo, I don't know anything that's happening. Why is the mixer able to go from left to right? Like and then like listening to KDAY, there was one night where it was, I want to say it was Aladdin and M-Walk together or Aladdin and Tony together. But they were doing, the soul, it's time. They had a routine where it's like, And I taped it and I brought it to my boy at school. I'm like, yo, what? How did they do this? Oh, they got 4 turntables going. I'm like, oh, you could tell? Like, so the whole thing was just like constantly just
trying to figure it out.
Constantly figuring out, getting your head cracked open every day.
How did
thinking
they do that?
But you don't know,
And then listening to stuff, trying to tape it and just trying to go back and listen, like, how did he do that?
Yeah.
The reason why we would do that, just for people that are watching, is that some of us were right hand DJs, and some of us were left.
Right.
So like Joe and Aladdin and Walk, they were left.
Yeah.
And Tony's both, but we're more right.
Right.
So it was, we would have we would already know as soon as I would grab the bump, I would kind of set it up for him. So you just became dun 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 dun. So then it became like, and then they would go back and they do it for us. So so that's where that came from, and we used to mess around doing that, like when we were recording the Mixmaster show sometimes.
Yeah, man, shouts to you guys, man, because you guys really, you nurtured me, man. You know, growing up listening to KDAY, listening to you guys get busy, man. And Aladdin, man, like, you know, I used to study the way Aladdin stands when he DJs. Like, that's how far it got with me, you know, looking at DMC tapes and stuff like, okay, so he kind of puts his left shoulder down a little bit so he gets a little torque going. He gets a little, you know, I'm like, okay, that shows why there's so much swag going on. Like, okay, you know, and like there's little things that, I mean, you're constantly studying, and it was hard to find anything to study at the time. You know, once the VHSs came along with those actual battles, you're like, oh, now we got some real gold. You can watch what they're doing. But
I want to give credit to Tony G, because I don't think people understand. Like, 1580 KDAY at the time was doing a lot of electro, right? The reason why you got the New York hip hop feel was through Tony. Yeah. Because he had that ear for that, and he would have connects with how to get New York records. Yep. Like I remember when he went to New Music Seminar, he brought back Eric B. and Rakim for president on Zakia. It wasn't even on 4th and Broadway yet. And I remember when he broke that on the radio, it was a traffic jam. I was sitting in my friend's driveway, and I was like, damn, this record is just... And the way he was cutting it was even like, it was mind blowing. It was just like, what is, you know, like you said, what is this record and how is he cutting it? Like, this is so dope. So I got to give him his credit. I mean, a lot of us broke a lot of records, of course, but I just feel that Tony he just knew the hip hop.
Tony was in the mix.
And I mean, he was the first person to play Schoolie D, PSK. Yeah. And I got to give him the credit for like bringing that to 1580 KDAY and that whole style with the electro and the dance music too. That's how we had that station going. But that's where that came from. That people that don't know, 1580 KDAY was instrumental in just showing us about DJing. Yeah. What records are about, what's dope, what's not dope. And even when it came to the DJing, he was the one that pulled me to the side when I first started, and hey, I need you to do this, this, and this. Yeah. Don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. Yeah. Like, you know, he was even guiding us like how to play on the radio, like how not to overdo things, and make sure you're playing these, don't play this unfamiliar record until another unfamiliar record. You got to figure out how this goes into this, and you know, so he was instrumental in that whole thing.
Radio mixing is so different.
You're from an incredible group, Jurassic 5,
Thank you.
legendary, and on the West Coast, and I want to thank you guys for what you've done for the West Coast, because you guys put our name all around the world. Because one thing about guys like yourselves, like the Jurassic and the Dilateds and like the Alcoholics, and you guys were doing hip hop in LA. It wasn't like gangster rap. So that was like a whole other world in our LA scene. Yeah. But you guys represented us so hard and brought so much great
It's a lonely
music.
place, bro.
It is. it is, but it's you guys done great. Nah, but you guys done great though. You guys took it around the world and still represented the West Coast and showed the West that we had that in our arsenal too. So thank you for that.
Thank you for honoring us and playing our music. You know, like without guys like you, you know, we would still be in the basement programming the SP1200.
Crazy you say that, because we're talking about gangster rap and all that, but it's crazy you say that. When I used to do the 9 o'clock bomb, that's where you guys would fit a lot. Yeah, I did play you during West Side Radio also. Right, but it was always like I said, it was like two different West Coasts. We had gangster rap and all that, and I was doing that on Friday nights. But during the week, it was Dilated, Jurassic, and you know, like I said, the Licks, Cypress.
I remember that.
It was a you know, Exhibit 2. I would put him in that category. Razkaz, and it was just like it was like we had a great time and a great era. But did you feel that too? Because I never seen a lot like you guys didn't cross over and go. I always wanted to hear, honestly, a Jurassic 5 Nate Dogg song. Believe it or not, that would have been so crazy. Because the way you guys harmonize and stuff in the hooks, I always thought like, damn, it'd be dope to hear like Nate Dogg do a hook with these guys.
I always wanted more vocalists to collaborate with the group. Mm-hmm. And I think the MCs wanted more producers to collaborate with the group. So there was this kind of tug and pull thing going. But
did you guys ever talk about that though? Like, hey, we should do a record with Snoop one day. Why not?
Not with the I'm trying to think if there was a conversation that was actually like, you know,
because it was the 90s. It was the 90s just like that.
Like Corrupt would have been incredible.
That would have been great. I would have loved to see
Corrupt would have been incredible for us, you know. But it just never, I think, you know, to be perfectly honest, man, I think the majority, if not all the members of that group, their ear kind of slanted towards the East.
Okay.
You know, and that's not a diss. You know, we're all West Coast kids and whatever, and we've seen and heard it all. But I think the style of production from the East Coast just turned us on. Like, you know, some people are like, man, that West Coast production shits on that East Coast production. It's all about real instruments and real moogs and the drummer and you know, bringing back the musicianship. Yeah, I get it. I ain't gonna argue that. And then some people are like, no, it's all about cutting up that mosaic, bro. It's all about finding the deepest, dirtiest, darkest funk from an Eddie Bo 45 that was, you know, only 500 pressed and from 1968, 1971, whatever, and finding the best part of that and making that the collage. So I really, personally, I won't speak for everybody. How about I'll do it like this? For me personally, I just really love the East Coast dirty bass lines. That dark era from the East Coast, that dark, moody shit, Smith & Wesson shit, you know, the fucking, you know.
The Mobb Deep.
That dirty shit.
And,
like, you know, it doesn't have to be as polished, you know, but now that said, there's a part of me that splits in the middle. I'm just like, how the fuck did Dre get the drums to crack like that? Yeah. So, you know, I was always pulled to the West Coast, you know, and I live here. So I wouldn't say there was a discussion specifically about a West Coast like gangsta MC. But there was always talks about bringing in people in. But, you know, it's tough with the group because there was 4 MCs and 2 producer DJs. So there's like,
how do you fit people in there?
How do you fit things in? Yeah. I don't know.
Let me ask you about Jurassic 5 and how you guys all got together, because you guys were 2 different groups right at the time.
J5 is 2 groups formed as 1 plus me.
Okay.
It's Unity Committee, which was Charlie Tuna, Cut Chemist, and Mark 7, and then Rebels of Rhythm, which was Akil, Soup, and a brother that passed away named Shawnee Mack, and then I was the lone soldier who was just a DJ.
Where did the Cold Crush influence and the Fantastic come in, like, to the group? Where did that get introduced?
I'd say that's more from the Rebels of Rhythm. I'd say that's more from Soup and Akil, especially Soup. Soup was like Soup and I both love like Kango Kid from UTFO, like that flow and Unity Committee. Charlie Tuna was kind of more now like leaders of the new school stuff going on at the time when I met them. You know, we had all shopped our demos and nothing was happening, you know, and it wasn't until we all got together that, okay, shit clicked, and you know we're traveling. Oh wait, the UK wants us to perform like multiple shows. Okay, cool. So for whatever reason, you know, the chocolate and peanut butter came together, and that was the magic. You know, and sometimes it's like that, right? You know, you don't know you're missing something until you try a song out.
So you guys just went into it naturally as like, hey, I got an idea. We want to do something like Cold Crush.
So the Unified Revolution thing
that was the beginning.
Was Cut's idea, like, hey, you know, I got Charlie and Mark, but maybe I can bring the Rebels on this.
Okay.
So it was like a feature.
Oh, okay.
And then it was like, well, why don't we just be a group? And so that's what it was, really.
I think you guys did such a great justice to that whole thing. Like, because I loved Wild Style, and I grew up on Cold Crush and Fantastic. I just love how they did
Great
that.
era.
But the way you guys did it was like almost like you just polished it and just took it to like where they started. You guys kind of grabbed it and took it to that level, which I thought was really dope. I just love the way you guys like did that.
Thank you,
I mean, it's so incredible. And then on stage, it's so fly on stage.
I think that's where we excelled, you know, because we'd go out so many times and see, you know, groups that made it, you know, just went gold or have this trajectory, they're going up, and you go and you see them live and we're like, damn, that was their show? Like, shit skipping and yelling at the sound man, and like, you remember that era, bro?
Oh, yeah.
And we were just like, we ain't never gonna do that. And we managed to stretch that one song into a 30-minute show at times, or a 15-minute show, which is tough to do. So that meant we had to use other people's records and routines and stuff like that. So that later really paid off for us when we had, you know, singles and shit to exhibit on stage, and, you know, Interscope signed us and all that shit.
So you can explain it to people. I don't think a lot of people understand this. There's groups that are what I would call like a touring group.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of their success comes from. Yeah. It's not necessarily they're waiting on the radio all the time. It's really them getting up and going out and touching the fans and then rocking shows. And then that word gets back, and then people start I want to book you again. And before you know it, it's like Cypress Hill to me is that they're a touring group. Their success comes from their records, of course, but
Yeah.
it's because they tour so hard
Yeah.
and they've been doing it for so long that it's just like, you know, a lot of guys don't understand. They wait at home and they just wait for something to happen. It's like, bro, you're supposed to be out there. Like, even if
gotta
it's just
be
you
out
by
there.
yourself,
You gotta
even
be
if
out
you got to
there.
just be out there, little by little, you'll start to gain those fans, you know.
I had
But
a
give
lot
us a rundown of that.
Yeah, I had a lot of friends who got signed, and I'm like, where's his shit? Like, he has a good single, or she got a great single, or they got a great single. And
How did you guys get to just becoming a touring group like that? Who told you guys, like, hey, man, you
we
gotta get out
always
there?
liked performing. All of
Okay.
us. We always liked performing because we didn't have a pot to piss in. We didn't have anything to show for it. We didn't have that much music. We had a hand that was dealt to us that you can look at it in one way and say, that's a fucked up hand, or you can look at it and say, that's what actually helped us get over the hump to selling out shows everywhere. So the hand was, we sold, I think, about 100 to 200,000 units on our own of an independent release that we released, our first release.
Was that the JU?
EP? Well, not the Unified Revolution. Yeah, the JU.
But that was
joint,
JU,
the
right?
EP, right?
That was from the EP.
Yeah.
So that was what got you guys, people interested in you.
That's what got every label.
Now, let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
First of all, JU to me is like a signature LA hip hop record.
Word up.
Like when you listen to that record and it comes on,
Yeah.
it just puts you in 95, 96. It puts you in that era.
Yeah.
So LA, it's like it's
Yeah.
almost like a signature. You know what I mean?
And it's dirty. The era we were sampling from was 1968 to 74. We kept it in that era. Kind of answers your previous question.
Yeah.
Like we were trying to, well, anyway, Cut and I were trying to develop a sound. The other group, the other members might not have known it, you know,
Right.
from the production side. We're trying to develop like this dirty, real texturized, very rare record sampling style. That's what we were going for.
Great record.
We're going for like, no, you're not going to touch our samples because you don't got these records. That's
Right.
what we were kind of headed towards, you know. But when we signed to Interscope after getting the notoriety,
But that sold 150 for you out there, huh? People was really digging that, huh? Yeah, it was hot.
We aligned with this a distribution called New Groove Alliance. They did a great job. And then I talked to Peanut Butter Wolf and I said, hey man, I need to do this internationally. Like, what do I do? He had just started Stone's Throw, and he goes, don't sign with anybody. Just do license deals. And I'm like, thank you, bro. That's the missing piece. I didn't understand that you could do that. I didn't understand you could do that at the time. Like, you can piecemeal your project. So collected another 25K here, another 25K there. That's a lot of money back then. Back then, we're talking 94 going into 95, 96, something like that. You know. Okay, Germany, you want to do a licensing deal? Cool. Okay, UK, you want to do one? Okay, cool. We got our people in the States. Okay, now we're worldwide. So by the time, you know, when LA was kind of ignoring us, when we toured Europe and killed it and sold out shows and did festivals, by the time we got home, LA was knocking on our door, specifically Interscope Records. And Columbia offered us deals. Every label did. But it was Interscope that put in the contract what we said in our meetings. So we're like, okay, they're serious. Let's do it. But the hand that I was telling you about that could be perceived as good or bad is that right when we signed, our A&R left, which was Tom Wally. He was the other head alongside with Jimmy Iovine. So he went to Warner.
That hurts.
So you're left with an A&R that's like,
right. That's what I mean.
And Jimmy's like, who are these guys? I got 50, I got Dre, I got Eminem, and I got Black Eyed Peas,
Akon,
and then Gwen Stefani on the rock shit. And it just, he's like, who are these guys? Why do we sign them? You know, it was the feeling anyway.
No, that's true though, because it's like,
I don't want to put words in anybody's mouths, but we weren't urban, and the urban, like, we weren't urban to them because we weren't talking that gangster shit.
Right.
But we were doing true hip hop. You know, and articles would be like, "Oh, it's alternative hip hop." Alternative to what? This is the center of hip hop. So it was frustrating to us, but you know, you can't change the world's perception on you, and you definitely can't change the record label's perception. They're going to do what they're going to do, and what's popping is popping. So we were like, okay, we'll focus on these shows, no problem. And it didn't matter because we would just sell out wherever we went, and all that money went straight to us. You know,
I also wanted to ask you to jump over to Jurassic real quick. When you guys did New York, how did that feel? Were they accepting? Were they accepting of? It
was great.
They admired the style, like what you guys are doing.
Our nerves were high, but we crushed it. We crushed it, like because our nerves were high. You know, like when stakes are high, you focus on stage or in the studio, whatever you're doing. But when you know it's like, okay, this is it.
There's a big respect in New York, because when I went to New York and did New York with Mello and Ace our first time, and we had Mentirosa and we played like Palladium and Roselands and killed it.
Yeah.
We didn't know, but we were so like, wow, we can't believe we made it to New York.
Yeah.
We were just like, this is the Mecca of hip hop. Like, if we could do it here, and then when they accepted us, it just had us even on a higher, like, oh man, they digging what we're doing. This is cracking.
We were doing a tour called Word of Mouth Tour, and I can't remember if that was our first time that we performed in New York, but it was one of the first times. And we were on a tour bus, and it was Jurassic 5 and Dilated. We made our way all the way through the country, playing a gang of shows, collecting fucking cash, just boom, boom, selling a shitload of merch, just murdering shit, all the money coming back to us. We get to New York. For whatever reason, that was our last stop, or close to our last stop. It was like 75% into the tour, and we kill the show. Dilated kills it. J5 kills it. And we get back on the bus the next day, and we're all sitting. You know how tour buses, it's like two couches like facing each other. So it's it's Dilated on one side and Jurassic 5 on the other. And we're looking, and we're sitting there like, everybody's like quiet. You could tell everybody's thinking about the night before, like, damn. And then Babu goes, no biggie, we just crushed New York. I'll never forget that shit. We were bawling because it was like that uncomfortable silence for a long time. Like, you can tell everybody's gears was just,
it's like, damn, we did this. Like,
damn, that routine worked. Like, we tried that new routine. It worked. There's a lot of new things we were trying. Like, at that time, I think I was playing Nas's One Love on the kalimba, the real instrument, and then Cut would drop in the beat, and the crowd, what the fuck, or you remember East Flatbush Project, Try by 12.
Try by 12, yeah. Oh.
I brought out the whole koto and I played it, and then the beat kicks in, shit like that. We were trying to like grab the audience, and say, no, there's something more we got to show you. So, but that was the funniest bus ride. Fucking Babu, when he's funny, he's the best, man.
I want to ask you, Nu-Mark, about the writing process of Jurassic 5 when you had, because these guys, to me, are incredible MCs. When you really listen to what they're talking about too, because they're really saying things. Kill just really has some. They all do, but I'm just like, I would listen to Kill. Well, I listen to all of them, but I like there's certain things that he would say that would just catch me and just. But how was that process with these guys? Do you all sit in a room together, or did you separate? Somebody writes a lyric. I mean, does their verse, or another person, or was it always you guys all writing together?
With the MCs, they usually go off into usually with each other, or, I got a piece. Maybe we could fit that piece with what you got. Piecemeal it together. But I've seen them write together, and I've seen them in separate universes coming together.
So it always worked. They knew how to connect it together, because it sounded like they wrote. It sounds like when I listen to Jurassic, it sounds like they're in one room. Yeah. And they're together, very together. It just sounds very together.
Well, we got to a place where we would write something and say, try it on the mic. So when I finally got my first studio, bought my first house, and for the Power and Numbers album, after Quality Control, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, they were able to write and say, well, try it. Just get on the mic and see if that shit works going into Charlie, like this, and so it was a different workflow. So there was that era, and then there was the era of like, oh shit, we're paying for the studio, we better get everything really clean. There was two different eras. I can't say if one was better than the other, but as far as when they would come together, they would have to make sure they were writing together, I guess, to answer your question. Like when, one person doing my shit ends like this, maybe you could pick up on, that kind
what
of
I always
thing.
admired about these guys is that they rapped about other things that were not what basically people were rapping about in LA. It was just like, they weren't gangbangers, they weren't street dudes, but they didn't want to be that. They were giving you a whole other perspective, some Islam, some mind things. I mean, it was a lot of little things that they would, like jewels. It was like little jewels in there, you know what I mean, that they had about them. So that's what I always liked about that specific group, Jurassic 5,
Yeah. I mean, every time I heard them in interviews, and people say, like, we would go to UK, you guys are from the West Coast, how come no gang talk on the mic, whatever.
And not a lot of cussing either.
Not a lot of cussing. And the cussing thing, that was me really pounding in their heads. I'm like, cussing costs money, because we press records. I'm like, we need a master for one extra joint. That's money. We need to make space on the record. That makes the groove smaller, which makes the shit lower in volume. We need our shit to crack in the club. It just like a lot of just little shit, and it's more time in the studio to make a clean version. Like Like, but if you're gonna curse, you're gonna curse. You know, they ain't listening to me. But that was me really heavy. Like, you know, if Nas could do it, so can we. Yeah, you know, like, you know, Nas, you know, there's barely any curse words on that first album. Like, damn, man. Like,
Nu-Mark, did you do improvise for Jurassic 5? Honestly, that record right there, I used to bang that so heavy on 9 O'Clock Bomb, bro. Thank you. I think that record is, I don't want to say the best record that they ever made, but if it's something that if I'm gonna go to, like, that's a go-to to me. Like, I just love that beat and the way, I like the space in the record, and I just like the way they came off. They
had an energy on that.
Oh man, that record is
they
good.
They seemed like they wanted to be there.
When I looked that record up, that's what tripped me out. I was like, oh, I had to know who produced it. Who produced this?
Oh,
and I seen your name. I was like, whoa, man.
It's a crazy
Did you feel that when you recorded that record? Did you say, oh, man, I got one?
Okay, there's 2 moments I've had with the group where I've had that, you know, we all get that spiritual, emotional feeling when you make something, right? But there was 2 really distinct moments. There was one at the very beginning when we were doing the EP.
Mm-hmm.
We were trying to figure out what's the next step, and Cut had a little boombox on his front porch. It was nighttime, and he just started playing some beats, and my fucking mouth was just on the ground. I'm like, oh, we got the gusto. He played Concrete Schoolyard. He played J.U. He played a bunch of shit. He even played Day at the Races in that sitting. I'm like, oh, this is the blueprint. This is the sound. This is the concrete. This is the foundation right here. So that was one moment. The next moment is when I was at my first house in my studio, and I got used to my monitors. I got used to my system. I wasn't paying an engineer and checking the clock and all that. And I made What's Golden.
Great record, man.
That I felt right away, because that came out of anger. That came out of the group saying, you ain't making enough beats. You ain't making enough hot beats. And I was like, fuck, man, I was pissed that they said that shit, you know, and so I was just, how about this? How about this? Okay. I just kept going through, nope, fuck that disc, do that shit out, boom, and I just kept going through shit, and I played it, and I saw them go, what the fuck is this? And they like Voltron clicked in real quick, and I was like, okay, we got something here.
Where's Jurassic today? You guys, would you say they're broken up, or do you guys get together?
We're broken up.
But you guys do get together for a show here and there? Or,
no,
or you don't.
We don't do shows. We just said,
you just let it go.
Leave it off on a high note. Let's.
Which is cool, you know. Yeah, which is cool. You think there'll be a day where you guys will get back together?
Never say never. Right now, I don't see it. You know, we did like a 3-year reunion tour. We did like Coachella and Murdered It, and ended up like touring for 3 years after that. After we broke up, right?
Okay.
So we did like a reunion thing. And, you know, part of the group wanted to, you know, if we're going to continue, let's record. And then, you know, others didn't. And so.
What do you think, like, separated the group? Was it the industry itself, or just a mixture of things?
Personalities.
Okay.
Personalities. And,
it's hard to have people, like a lot of people in the group.
Mindset as where the train should go.
Where are we going?
That's more anything else. Because you can get past the personalities.
Yeah.
We did for years. I can think of 2 members in the group that should have nothing to do with each other.
Right.
But they're in a group together for, I don't know how many years that was.
Yeah.
It's where are we headed? You know, where are we headed? That's the most important thing. Yeah. If one dude's over here and the rest are over here, or 3 guys over here and 3
3 and 1 and 3,
it don't work.
It doesn't work.
Even though we did a majority rules thing,
and then you got to get to the point of, are we done? Maybe we're just done.
I personally felt like I didn't feel the 5 heartbeats.
Okay,
straight up.
Nu-Mark, do you guys yourself, when you look back on it, do you regret signing to a major label? Do you think you should have stayed independent, like the way you guys were doing it, or did it help you or hurt the situation for Jurassic? Because you guys are an interesting group. It's like you're like an underground group in a way. So major labels sound good, but they really don't know what to do with groups like that sometimes. So I don't know what
I answer this question different every time I get asked it, because I feel different about it each time I think about it. Yeah. So there was a big meeting with us, with just the members of the group and our manager, and we had narrowed down to Interscope. I remember we were sitting in my apartment. Interscope wants to sign us, and like 3 guys were like, yo, we should do it. And I was like, nah, we shouldn't do it, man. This was the keep it real era. This is the don't sell out era. Yeah. This is the independent era more than anything else. Yeah. Big push. You know, it started in the East Coast, and we just said, hey, let's do some white labels. Let's do it ourselves. Yeah. And
Fat
at that
Beats
time,
was popping.
Fat Beats was popping. So we still own our masters from that EP that we had sold that many units on. And so I was like, nah, we signed to a major label. Why? What are they going to do? And then Soup said, "Nu, we need a fucking video." And I was like, now videos back then, you remember how expensive they were.
Expensive.
It's not like now you can throw up your cameras and get busy, right? Different eras. So the limitations in technology swayed the way I was thinking. And then I said, well, let's not sign as a group then. Let's sign as a label. The guys weren't cut out for it. They weren't, some people are very business minded where they're just like, yeah, we're going to set up a label. We're going to set up the LLC. And they were just like, let's just get this record out, Nu. Quit fucking around. I'm like, all right.
Nu-Mark, I got to ask you about this too. You're one of these record collector people that just, I've met some incredible people that have like these incredible collections. I don't know if you remember like Delicious Vinyl back in the days, right?
Of course. Yeah.
When I first met Matt and Mike.
Oh, those dudes are ill.
He took me to the back. They used to have a spot. They used to have a studio on Santa Monica, right? Yeah. And Matt Dyke one day takes me to the back of it. And man, he had this record collection that was just so ill, bro, like ill. But I have to ask you, I mean, you have a great collection. Whose collection have you seen that like blows your mind? I know Chemist, I would say right off the gate, I know he got a crazy one. But like who's somebody else that you've seen that's like, wow, they got a great collection of records?
It's quality over quantity.
Okay.
And so I started off, I have a weird story where I bought 20,000 records when I was 16. So during the house party era.
From somebody you bought them?
So we used to go to this flea market deep in the valley, and there was this old jazz dude, this old black dude, like had a white beard or whatever. He had all these jazz records in there, and I bought my incredible bongo band in there, funky drummer in there, all the standards at the beginning, all the ultimate breaks and beats that you were chasing shit, right? Mm-hmm. And me and my boy Amani we asked the guy, we're like, jokingly, we're like, how much for the whole lot? Because he had a shitload of records. We'd go there all the time. And he said $500. And we were killing it. We were doing a lot of house parties. We would do sometimes 2 to 3 a weekend, and then, we were killing it, for back then, as a kid, that's a lot of money as a kid. Yeah, we had to, fix the amps and bring the speakers and the unglamorous bullshit. But that was a lot of money back then. So we said $500. We both went $250 a piece. Like, hell yeah. And so that collection yielded pretty much the first 2 records I produced for J5. Wow. Like the majority from my side. From that. Okay. Yeah. When I met Cut, he was the opposite of me. He had a very slim, collection. He had 45s. I'm like, this is you selecting 45s. Well, why 45s? He said, these motherfuckers bump, but in a different way than a 12-inch. I'm like, yeah, you're right. They do. They have a more crispy sound, like they're not 12-inch like disco-y sound where that's the best sounding format, those disco 12s. Those breaks on those, you ain't going to get louder than that. But the 45s had a character to them, so I started collecting 45s with him. He was like, yo, we got to go to these flea markets, man. We got to catch up. We got to, we were trying to catch up to the East Coast straight up.
Yeah. Trying to find the breaks.
Q-Tip, Pete Rock, all those guys were ahead of us. Yeah. And we were trying to, we're behind. We got to catch up. Not to say that we didn't have heat already, but we have to be at that level. And so we just kept buying and buying and buying. I'd have to say, like, in person, it'd be Cuts collection, but, Shadow has a ridiculous collection.
Can you explain to me, for people that are watching, the art of record digging? Can you give me, like, your science to it? Like, when you walk into a record store somewhere, and you've been around the world, so I'm sure you've seen a lot of different record stores. What are you looking for? Or are you looking for anything? How does that go?
So, because I had such a large collection that, I was like, I got too much shit. Mm-hmm. I went into the record stores with a mindset of, I'm not buying shit. You got to sell me.
Okay.
Show me the grooves. I had that. So that.
You want to hear it. You want to know what.
Yeah, I have to know. It has to sit right on my lap.
Okay.
It has to sit right on my lap. Oh, I'm going to fuck those drums up, or that's a loop, or whatever. When I was in the thick of digging, I'm not at that space anymore.
Yeah.
I'm more buy like one or two things that I need. Oh, I filled that hole in my collection. I need that. Oh, I need a double of that. My copy is dusted of this. Let me grab it. Like I'm like cherry picking now. But did
you start bringing the record player?
Had to.
Where's the coolest place you've been where you walked in and you just found like heat? You're like, oh man, these guys got a lot of records in here.
Well, it wasn't quantity, it was quality. So there was a time where Cut was like, hey, I got a lead on this dealer named Eddie. We were in New Orleans and we had some time off, and so I'm like, cool, let's go dig. So we took this cab. This is well before Ubers. We took this cab, and the neighborhood started getting worse and worse. And we're in I don't know what ward. We just kept going. And I was like, yo, bro, this is getting sketchy. And then it was like dudes outside with their shirt off, like, yo, what? Talking shit. Like, oh, shit. And then when the cab goes, well, here you are. Here's your stop, boys.
And you in Nolans.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing worse than being in an unfamiliar hood in LA.
Yeah.
Let alone in another state. You know what I mean? Man. So, we're all familiar with our places, but so we get out and we got our record players in our hands. And we're like, oh shit, where the fuck are we? And then thank God the dealer was like, whistled to us across the street. We're like, okay, that's Eddie. We go there and he puts a ladder on his roof, from the ground to the roof. So it's up here. So we're climbing up this ladder with like one hand on the portable turntable, one hand on the ladder going like this.
Wow.
And I'm starting to kind of giggle. I'm like, this is the silliest shit I've ever, And we get up and we go in and he opens the door into his attic. It's hot as shit. And so I'm thinking, oh, these records are going to be so fucking warped. And they weren't. It was kind of cool. Not cool, but cool enough.
Cool enough not to warp.
Cool enough. And all 45's in the attic, kind of scattered with cobwebs and just messy. But I always trusted Cut. If he had a lead, it was a good lead.
Let me ask you about playing 45's and 12 inches, because one thing I've noticed about you, man, you're just so smooth on 45's. I know it's not as easy as a 12 inch whatsoever. You have to have a certain type of feel when you're dropping them and everything. But give me a rundown of that. Like, how do you approach that?
I love 45's, man.
You're great at it.
They're the funnest little donuts, man. They just bring me so much joy. That's the thing that I turn into a sucker. Like, that's when I'm like, I gotta buy this shit. Because I really slow down on digging. But with 45's, I'm like, man, I want this, man.
Yeah. Nu-Mark, I want to ask you also, when the Serato thing came in, were you into it or against it in the beginning? Because everybody had different feelings about it.
I fought it. I fought the Serato thing because my perspective was I have all these ill records. Why am I going to go to a computer with my collection slimmed down? It doesn't make any sense. I'm a collector. I'm a selector. So then I got booked to play Miami, and it was me and Craze, and they had me going on after Craze, and Craze was on Serato. So my whole shit changed because of my brother Craze. Like, wow. I was like, okay, I gotta change with the times, and I need to get as many joints in there as possible. 12 inches B-sides that people don't have, acapellas shit. I had to rethink.
What do you feel about it today? Because I see you be killing it on Serato. I mean, how do you feel about it today?
I don't have any limitations because there's so many pieces of technology now. Like this, I've never been like, oh, you're whack because you're DJing on CDJs. I like technology, the newest shit, and I like 45's. Just kill it. Whatever you do, just have just do something that either moves the crowd or do something really dope that I can take home with me. Right, like that thing he did that the crowd didn't get, but this pocket of people really did get it because it was very tough to pull off. Or it's a song I haven't heard in a long time. That kind of thing. Yeah, something you take home with you.
You know what I like about you, Nu-Mark? When people go see you, they're going to actually see you. They're not going like to a club to see a DJ play the songs that I want to. You know what I mean? Like the basic, typical songs, that's cool too. It's not a problem with that. But like, if somebody's going to see you or I'm going to see Cut Chemist or something, I wonder what he's going to do, because it's not easy to niche that out for yourself.
It gives you freedom. It does give you freedom. I was on a road podcast where we were talking about this, and they said, you're what's considered a showcase DJ. I'm like, okay, I'll take that, because we're talking about reading the room and stuff like that. And I made the comment, well, I don't read the room reads me.
True.
And the comment section went nuts. They're like, that's bullshit. You got to know how to make people move and all this stuff. And then other people are like, that's a good point. But it's because where you're at and all this other stuff came to it. cool. It's a good place to be, you know, but at the end of the day, either you rocked or you didn't, right? So that's still is always going to be there. That's always going to be an underlining thing.
Man, Nu-Mark, it was really good talking to you. I'm so thankful that you came, and I'm a big fan of yours, man.
Oh, man, likewise.
And Jurassic 5, bro, and just everything you've done, and that your DJing is just another level, dog. Man, it's just incredible, man.
It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be in the likeness of the G family.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man.
Please give Tony a hug for me.
I will. Where can they find you, Nu-Mark?
DJNumark.com.
Okay.
And I'm always on Instagram under DJ Nu-Mark. All my tags are that.
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you for coming, man. Westside Radio, of course, you know how we do it, man. It's Julio G. We'll hit you on the next one. Peace.
What's up, y'all? This is the Thug Lord Tupac. Be sure to check out Westside Radio.